From a bunch of Nazi artifacts found in a house in Germany to a clothed skeleton found in a house in the United States, here are 10 strange things that have been found in abandoned houses. Sebastian Yurtseven, a German history teacher, was conducting work on his aunt's house in the town of Hagen, Germany. He wanted to make some repairs to the house, which was affected by the floods that hit Germany last July, when something suddenly caught his eye. In a hiding place was a newspaper dating back to 1945. Stunned by this discovery, Sebastian decided to continue his research, which allowed him to get his hands on a lot of objects that belonged to the Nazis. Objects that, let's remember, had been in this house for 76 years. No need to imagine the reaction of this professor when he discovered documents, a portrait of Adolf Hitler, objects with the famous swastika, and many other things that had been hidden in this place by the National Socialist People's Aid, or NSV, a pro-Nazi organization. Of course, it was a shock for him to find all these objects to testify to a dark period in German history. Although shocked by the discovery, Sebastian was quick to respond by contacting a team from the archives and museum of the city of Hagen, who then came to collect the objects for examination. But as this professor later confessed, he can't help but get goosebumps when he talks about what he found in this house. Not sure if he will ever forget those Nazi artifacts. Amy and Corbin are two YouTubers specialized in treasure hunting. Some time ago, they wanted to explore an abandoned house, hoping to find something really interesting. But they didn't expect to find an incredible number of video games still packed in this house. That's right, these two YouTubers had in front of them lots of game cartridges and CDs, controllers, magazines, and videotapes, many of which had never been used. A real treasure. Yes, but why were all these items there and why had they never been used? Well, that's the question that led Amy and Corbin to do some more research, especially with the niece of the former owner of this abandoned house. That's when they learned that the latter was simply collecting these objects in memory of a relative he had lost and who was passionate about video games. This information must have saddened the two YouTubers, but if they shed a few tears, they were quick to smile again when they estimated the value of all these precious objects. Indeed, this treasure was worth, hold on tight, $100,000! Converted, that gives you a little more than 90,000 euros. Not a bad amount, is it? Thanks to this discovery, Amy and Corbin got rich. But above all, they inspired many people to follow their example by going to search in abandoned places. Now that's interesting. A few years ago, a member of the Reddit network known as Usher Baby was in West Virginia, where he came to explore an abandoned house located not far from a friend's house. He and his friend wanted to explore the interior of the dilapidated house, but what he found was anything but ordinary. We're not talking about the dirty stairs or the piano left there by the previous owners, but the traces of blood dripping on a wall, letters with disturbing messages, and sticks drawn in red on the doors and walls. The deeper Usher Baby went into this house, the more macabre things he came across that testified to the horror its last occupant must have experienced. Of course, because of this terrifying discovery, Usher Baby lived a real nightmare. But above all, he was prey to a total incomprehension, especially since some internet users, members of his network, suggested that the house had been inhabited by a sick person or locked there without his knowledge. But fortunately, Usher Baby did not take long to discover the truth about the state of this house. In fact, these macabre things had actually been used as a backdrop for a local singer's video. What a relief he must have felt then. Usher Baby was happy to discover that there was nothing horrible about the house, but we doubt he will ever set foot in another abandoned house. A few years ago, in the United States, some people had just bought this old house you see here at auction. They hoped to live a quiet life in this large house, located in this quiet neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. But things didn't look good, because the new owners of this house discovered a skeleton in one of the rooms on the second floor, fully clothed. Of course, the new owners were quick to alert the authorities, who, to their great relief, arrived on the scene to investigate. But their satisfaction was only short-lived because the investigation of the skeleton gave them no idea of the identity and sex of this person, let alone the circumstances of his death. It is not known if they were able to get any information afterwards, but these homeowners certainly ended up moving into this house in the meantime. Nevertheless, the memory of the clothed skeleton found in that second floor room will certainly never disappear from their minds. In the city of Houston, Texas, a young woman was inside an abandoned house where she had entered to smoke in peace. But once inside, she discovered to her horror that she was not alone, as a tiger was keeping her company. Yes, a tiger in flesh and blood was there too, locked in a cage. Frightened, the young woman immediately alerted the authorities, who then came to get the animal to take it out and take it away from this house, to her great relief. Now, although she was happy not to have been attacked by the feline, the young woman certainly had to feel sorry for this poor tiger that was being taken away. But at least she was happy to see that he had been taken out of that dilapidated house to a shelter where he would be better taken care of. Wow, this young woman will never forget what she experienced in that abandoned house. In Flint, an American city in the state of Michigan, a person who happened to be there decided to enter an old closed funeral home in order to explore its interior and try to make some interesting discoveries. But this person probably didn't expect to find this bag, which apparently contained the ashes obtained after the cremation of a human body. As this person continued to search and explore every corner of this funeral home, they found something that was no small thing: a jumble of chemicals, embalming equipment, and other supplies. Needless to say, seeing all of this stuff in unsanitary conditions made this person's head spin and his heart skip a beat. Only at first, because this person had prepared himself morally well before entering this funeral home. What is certain, however, is that she will not forget this bag of cremated human remains for a long time. Erica Garner, a woman living in San Francisco, wanted to make some repairs to the floor of her garage. But what a surprise it was when the workers came across a lead and bronze coffin, adorned with glass windows and well sealed, that was under the garage floor. And that's not all. Inside the coffin was the body of a girl, Miranda. That's how the girl was nicknamed. Would have died about 150 years ago, and she was probably from a wealthy family, judging by the quality of her coffin. Faced with this situation, which she had never expected, Erica Garner quickly called the specialists in the field, namely a funeral company, but also an archaeological company, in the hope that they would come and take the coffin from her home. The lady could already see herself finally getting rid of the coffin, but for that, she had to pay a huge sum. Can you imagine? If you were in Erica Garner's shoes, you would think that it is out of question to pay such an amount for a coffin that was simply forgotten to be buried 150 years ago. What to do then? Of course, you may think that Mrs. Garner had no choice but to pay, but in truth, she was very lucky. Because a charity which takes care of the funeral of abandoned children after their death got wind of this story and went to her house to take the coffin. All's well that ends well. Yes, but Erica Garner will always remember the image of that little coffin. Daniel Mirbachs, a photographer known for his photos taken in abandoned places, was in a house that would have belonged to a doctor in Germany. He had entered the house hoping to take some sensational photos, but what he found in the house was far from what he had imagined. Not only did he find a lot of intact objects such as furniture, bookcase, piano, typewriter, clothes and accessories still in good condition, but what caught his attention the most was the dilapidated medical examination room where there were instruments, a white coat, a bag and slices of human kidneys placed in glass jars. Can you imagine that? Of course, the photographer continued to explore the rooms of the house, taking all the pictures he wanted to have. But we can say that this visit was not without consequences for our friend, who probably had goosebumps when he saw this dilapidated medical room that would give chills to anyone. But despite everything, he couldn't help but feel a little joy after having succeeded in revealing the interior of this house, which it seems had been suddenly abandoned by its occupants. Nevertheless, Daniel Mirbax will always keep in mind the disturbing image of those slices of human kidneys placed in vials in this dilapidated medical room. A YouTuber specialized in exploring abandoned places was in this house, which had remained uninhabited for a long time, probably after the death of its owners. This YouTuber wanted to show his followers every corner of the house, but what he found in one of the rooms left him speechless. A mummified cat was lying there on a bed. The poor creature had died in this abandoned place, probably after the death of its owners, so the YouTuber stayed there, describing the state in which the animal was. Certainly, he had just made a fascinating discovery, because it's not every day that you come across mummified animals in abandoned houses. But still, it plunged him into a deep sadness, as we can see. Well, he quickly pulled himself together and continued exploring the other rooms of the house. Nevertheless, we can be sure that he has not yet forgotten that mummified cat. In Nigeria, as in almost every country in the world, the Anti-Corruption Unit is responsible for catching illegally collected money, its aim being to combat this practice that is harmful to the country. But a few years ago, this unit made a surprising discovery in one of the luxury apartments in Lagos, the country's largest city. About 40 million euros were there, in cash. Incredible! The Anti-Corruption Unit wasted no time in seizing all this money. The unit had just pulled off another coup in Nigeria's whistleblowers policy, but it must have taken a lot of effort to get all that money together and away from that apartment. But at least she could congratulate herself for having successfully completed her mission. By the way, the Nigerian Anti-Corruption Unit got a big round of applause for this move. Hats off! These were 10 discoveries that were made in abandoned houses. Which of these found things fascinated, terrified, or shocked you the most? And then tell me, have you ever come across something strange in an abandoned place? Tell us about it in the comments. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.